I made my players cry in a good way. Today I want to talk about how you go from being newbies and strangers playing D&D for the first time to 4 years later, 10 years later, crying at the end of a campaign. And I think ultimately what this means is, how do you make your players care about these imaginary people that you're asking them to basically put themselves into their shoes? And as a filmmaker and a writer, I think that what that ultimately comes down to is telling a good story. So naturally, that means you need to plot everything out, right? Well, no, actually. You can have what you might call a pseudo arc, or an idea of where you want the first chunk of your story to go, or we can call it a first act. Those are terms that I like to use because that's where my background comes from. But ultimately, that arc is going to evolve and devolve and dissolve as players interact with your world. You don't know which characters they're going to ignore, which ones they are going to fall in love with, which ones they are going to kill. Sure, you might want them to get to Act 2 by flying in on a dragon and fighting the lord of the city in his castle, but if they take a submarine and they go under all that stuff that you planned and they blow up the castle from underneath, well, guess what? Act 2 is now aquatic. Ultimately, I think one of the best things that you can do is try to think of your story, and I mean the one that you and your players are making together, and in the sense that you're guiding it as it's being written. Think of it more like a flow chart. You have all of these options available of where your players are going to go, but you have no idea how they're going to get there, if they're going to get there, or if they care at all. Well, so then what the heck? How do you make your players care? How do you make a meaningful story at the table if you can't plan any of it? Well, I think there's a fine line between preparation and improvisation, but I think I've broken down my campaigns into 3 key pillars. And if you can master each of those 3 keys or pillars, then you will create a story that I think resonates with your players more, that helps move the story in a more natural way, and will ultimately make them care, which is then how you make your players cry. Now, it all starts with laying out the foundation, right? That's sort of step number 1. You need to have a foundation for your story because your players can't care. Whoa, I just hit a bunch of buttons on my screen. Your players can't care about what they don't understand. If they don't understand your world, if they can't visualize your world, if they don't understand its history, if they don't know anything about the kingdoms, if they don't know anything about the people they're interacting with, if they don't understand what's at stake, they're never going to care. So the first thing that you need to do as a dungeon master is learn how to lay out that information, lay out the foundation for them in pieces, through the story, not through exposition dumps, not through narrative dumps. You need to find a way to teach them about your world through the bits and pieces, through the time between sessions, through the time between they're traveling from this city and that city. Talk about how they pass this statue and give them a little bit of information about what it might be if they ask about it. Through the story, through the way they interact with the world, lay out that foundation or as early as you can, because when you do that, they're going to start to visualize the world differently. The way that they look at the world at the very beginning is going to be different than the way they look at it 20 sessions in, as you start to, I guess the best way to put it, and I guess this is just how I think of it, session 1 is sort of like putting in the outline. Everything's black and white to them. They have their own idea of what the colors should be, but how you interact with the world, how you interact with them as their players, how you present the information, how you talk about your world, how you embody your NPCs, the people that they meet, the places they visit, all of that is going to start building a color palette for them so that everything in between those lines starts to take on a specific tone, a specific mood, a color palette, a visual representation that you can only loosely guide. Obviously, everybody's going to think about it differently, but at the very least, you can have some sort of say in how they understand it. And once they do begin to understand it, they can start to care. Oh no! Someone's casting sleep on me. Ah, dang, they got me. Now here I am, for 1 minute, according to 5e. Oh look, I'm dreaming about Describe again. I mean, I get it, how could I not? It's got this massive curated library of descriptions. I mean, like NPCs, magic items, monsters, and locations. All professionally written and just waiting to drop into a session. Also, it has music, maps, ambient sound effects, and even a place to add your own notes, so everything you need is kind of in just one place. And you can search by theme or mood, and it even connects to your VTT, so you're not scrambling when your players are throwing you a curveball in the middle of the session. It's literally my dream prep space, like literally. Oh crap, I'm waking up. Use code FANTASYFORGE at checkout. Did anyone else just dream of a sponsor? moving on to the second step, I guess pillar number 2 is that they need to care about the characters. And ultimately, I think what we want them to do is ideally care about their own characters. So in order to do that, they need to think like their characters. They need to embody them, because if they can't embody them, then there's no way for them to empathize with those characters. So how do you get them to empathize? There's a lot of different things that you can do in order to help them empathize, in order to help them embody them. I think there's exercises that you can do before your sessions. You can do them between sessions. I guess we can call it homework. I like to give my players homework. And, I'll give them a question that I send to them either in Discord, or if they're in person, I like to give them sort of worksheets. Answer one question as your character. And the question might be very simple. It might be something like, who was your best friend growing up in your hometown? What were they like? What did you do with them? And what happened to them? Or why are they not in your life anymore? Something like that. Really basic question. It kind of gives them one thing to look at. But as they do that, as they start to answer these questions as their character, maybe the first time they're thinking about it a specific way, but then the next time that in session 2, you give them a different question or a different assignment, a different thing to work on, they're going to start to think differently. And what I have seen is that by the time they're working on their 10th or their 20th piece of assignment, their homework or whatever, they really start to embody their character. They start to think about them differently. So that's one thing that you can do, is sort of give them assignments to ask them to become their characters, to write a letter in their voice, to answer questions as if they are journaling as those characters. Tyrion believes this is his life's work, and the reason is because of, right? Giving them the instructions to become that character, think like their character. Now, some other things that you can do is to give them downtime to explore as their character. So you might have them return from a big mission in the Underdark, and they come back up, they're back at their hometown, they're back in their homes, and you might just simply tell them, hey, you guys, we're going to pick up the story in a week's time. What are you doing for that week? And you can go down the table and just give them time to explore as their character. They want to go pick up some supplies. They want to go see their family. They want to go check in on their brother. Whatever it is, give them that downtime so that they can explore as their character, which is in a lot of ways kind of putting them on the spot to become their character. The other thing that you need to do is challenge them to grow, and especially grow together as a party. Because if their character is the exact same in session 1 as they are in session 100, chances are they're probably not going to care about that character very much, because they're just boring, they're bland. And if you can get them to grow together, if you can put some trials in front of them, things that test characters together, like having a friend turn on them, or having a crime syndicate come after all of them, frame them all, things that force them together, that creates a bond that they cannot do without each other. That is going to strengthen their bonds with each other, and it's going to make them care not only about their own character, it's going to make them care about their friends. So if you can put challenges in front of them, make them grow, and put challenges in front of the whole party, I think that's really going to do a lot for helping them learn to empathize with their character. The other thing that you can do is give them each a moment for their character to shine. So in one session, you might have the barbarian do a fighting ring or a strength test, some sort of like thing where it's like that. They are fighting a creature where strength is really the only way to do it. Maybe it's anti-magic. If they're fighting a beholder or something with similar properties. And you want to do that for every single character. So, maybe a room that's a puzzle that only a wizard could solve. Give each of your characters a moment to shine. Give them something from their background that they have to interact with, like a character or a person they thought that was dead, and an enemy that they thought they'd never see again. Give them that thing that pushes them, challenges them, and give them a moment to shine. And then ultimately, you can also just let your players go off the rails. It does not matter. It doesn't matter what they do. All that matters is that they have fun. So if you let your players go off the rails and let them just do what they want to do, they are ultimately saying, this is what my character wants to do. And if that means that they need to bully you as the DM, that's okay. Back in my long game, I ended the campaign a few years, or probably about a year ago now, but I gave my players the option to create an NPC, and I said, name them whatever you want. Next session comes around, they decided on the name Johnny Meathammer. And I don't know how else to put it other than Johnny Meathammer was a dwarf with, let's just call him a Casanova. He had 3 legs. I don't know how else to put it. Johnny Meathammer, I'll let you decide what that means, was a creation of theirs. He was a dwarf, he was a good friend, and ultimately by the end of that, because they got to kind of put their hand in his creation, they would have gone to the 9 layers of hell to save him if they had to. And I mean that full-heartedly. Wholeheartedly? Fully. Whatever. They would have gone to the hells to save him. And ultimately, they did a lot of things in order to help him. And he was there at the end during the climax and everything. So if you give them that freedom, you might be surprised. And then lastly, the big pillar, I think, is that you as the DM need to create a place at your table where your players can feel safe and they can thrive. Because ultimately, if they don't feel safe, they're never going to open up to you. They're never going to open up to their fullest character's potential. And I don't mean that necessarily means that you have to cater to every single person's needs. That doesn't necessarily have to be true. But I think that at the very least, you need to create a place where you're not going to feel judged, where people are going to feel like they can put on that weird voice. They can make those jokes. Obviously, that means set some ground rules. Again, session 0, super important. But at the very least, if they can come and they know that, hey, everybody at this table is sitting around and playing make-believe with a bunch of friends, probably drinking or smoking or whatever, if they feel like they can come to your place or go and sit in front of the computer and jump into that Discord call and be safe to explore any and all ideas that come to them as their character, you're going to get a much more complete version of that character because they can then sort of unwind and start to think differently rather than being on guard and thinking about me, Alex, has to play this character, Torvid, and I'm going to look stupid by doing this, so I'm going to play Torvid a little bit less wild. You want to mitigate that as much as possible. So if you can create a place where they feel safe, you're going to get a much better character. So I guess ultimately the best thing that you can do as a DM is learn to listen, learn to read the table, grow, learn to understand people, and be a better communicator. Hopefully those 3 tips helped. Let me know in the comments down below what you do to make your players care. Have you made your players cry? If you have, I want to hear about that. That sounds really awesome. If you want to help support the channel, please think about becoming a Patreon member. It means more to me than you could possibly know. And if you don't have the means, that's okay. Just leave a little love, like, subscribe. As always, thank you so much for watching. Forge on, my friends. And remember, we must go to hell for Johnny Meathammer.